Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Bell Peppers and Beef, a Cowboy Bebop podcast. I'm Paul.
Justin.
And Dave.
Alright, so episode 5, Ballad of Fallen Angels. Quick summary. While searching for some guy whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, an executive of the Red Dragon Syndicate, Spike ends up confronting Vicious, his old enemy. Often considered a masterpiece, this contains one of the most influential scenes in history, which consists of the finale in the church.
Well, Yenrai is not really all that hard to pronounce.
Fuck off.
Okay.
Okay. So, Justin, what did you think of this episode? Just kind of like a brief opinion.
Brief opinion is probably the best episode in the series.
God. Okay. David?
It's very, 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 very good.
Yes.
Okay. So, the episode starts off in some giant-ass office.
Bleh.
Some dude, I don't remember his name.
Name, sadly, I can't describe, but it's two rival gangs that are supposedly getting the blood off the floor and trying to make a decent enough pact with one
They
another.
want to make a peace treaty and, not promise not to kill each other.
But
Exactly.
they sign it in blood.
Yeah, they
Yes, they
definitely
did.
do. So they definitely know they're serious. And it's definitely a nice little moment. And the second note I wrote after that little note was, how quick does this get fucked up?
Well, yeah, it's Yakuza, right? Like, that's what we're meant to take. So, pretty quickly we get introduced to Vicious.
Well, after a ship explodes and all the other particular stuff that before that, but yeah, we definitely get a nice introduction to Vicious.
Yeah, but I want to talk about Vicious.
He'll be the main antagonist.
Name-wise or otherwise?
Okay, well, first the name is ridiculous.
I think it might just be a code name. Who knows what his real name is?
Okay, fine. I refer to him as Bird Shoulder.
Doesn't surprise me either.
Because, yeah, nobody with the name Vicious I can take seriously.
Don't worry, we'll get to that in my notes.
Okay, so there's a scene on the ship. It's called the Bebop, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
still called the Bebop.
Don't pay attention to that shit.
Well, what was the villain's name in the first episode?
I think...
Because you wrote that down.
I
I told you would forget.
Asimov? Oh, I was right.
What the...
Fuck you, bitch.
I think the interesting thing relating to the ship is there was an interesting case of role reversal in this episode, don't you think?
What do you mean?
Think about all the episodes before this one where Jet is looking for a bounty and he mentions it to Spike. What's usually the response?
Yeah. Spike's usually fuck off, and in this one he's actually interested in going after the bounty.
Well, Jet's a bit more concerned.
Yeah.
Indeed. Meaning
So-
this is a big deal.
There is a can that looks like a Pepsi can, but it's called, like, Pepu or something.
Yeah.
That was great. I don't know why I wrote that down, but I loved it.
Gotta
No,
have
I
some-
sort of saw it and made a mental note, but I
Off-branding.
don't think it was quite right down note worthy.
Yeah, well, my notes are full of weird stuff, so.
I love how there's just random off-brand stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Like, they couldn't get their licensing to put Pepsi in there or something. That's great. So, what happens next, Dave?
If I remember right, Faye overhears the conversation and sees the information about the bounty that's on the Yakuza's head. And being the gambler that she is, she decides to throw her coins in and try to meet up with the guy. At the opera of all places.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I love the scene where she goes into the opera and, whatever his name is, he's dead with his throat slit,
Bleh.
and Vicious
Mal.
is there. Mal, that's the ticket. I love that scene. It looks so great.
I think the note I made about that kind of summarizes everything about that. Which is, simple case of she turns up and asks who the guy is, says the name that you find absolutely ridiculous, and then goes back to her, where it simply can't be placed as. So yeah, she got herself into some very tricky business.
Right, so
Vicious
dude's got
and-
his throat slit.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Well, after the mild freak out of Faye going way over her head, I'm not sure if there's a in-between before that, but I think it cuts to the convenience store with the two little kids trying to check out the pornography.
Oh,
and
yeah.
trying to run away with it, too.
Yeah. And then
And Spike comes
Spike
along.
stops them. He goes into the convenience store that, for some reason, just sells pornography on the shelf.
Not just
available to anyone. And also sells liquor, like, right next to it.
I think that was her own bottle, which, by the way, her name was Anne.
Anastasia.
You can't say her full name. Only 2 people are allowed to say that.
Fuck it, I just did.
Yeah, anyway, is that person.
Yeah, and she goes on about how Spike is, like, supposedly dead or something.
Yeah, he has died once, which we learn.
And we find out Vicious's name, which... I still hate that name.
I'm sorry you'll have to live with it for the rest of the series. He doesn't show up too much, but,
Still, he's kind of an important character in the stories.
Yeah, I have theories on that we'll get to later.
Oh boy.
I don't think I'm totally off base, though. Anyway, let's just cut to the only scene that really matters in this episode, which is at the cathedral.
alright. After the call that Vicious and Faye made to the Bebop, it's like, hey, can you help me? I'm a little tied up.
I'm tied up at the moment.
So yeah, Spike and Vicious, or whatever.
Have an amazing fight sequence in the cathedral.
You forget. The entire sequence starts off with the playing of Freebird, if I'm correct in remembering, of Spike heading off to the cathedral. And that musical moment just completely emphasizes everything that's happening within that sort of event of things. And Spike and Vicious meet, have a little conversation, and everything gets started with one of Vicious's flunkies getting shot in the head. Because Spike's not dealing with that shit.
Alright, so they have this fight. They basically destroy the cathedral.
Pretty much.
Well, everything in it. Not necessarily the building. But so, there is a really great shot where there's a stained glass window, and there's Vicious is standing up, and he's got a sword
Sword to Spike's shoulder.
And Spike has a gun to Vicious's shoulder. That is a fucking great shot.
Most definitely.
Well, yeah.
Alright, so then Spike gets thrown through the stained glass window, and they have this amazing falling sequence.
No,
which
most
involves all these flashbacks to things that have happened in his past. We learn a little bit about Spike's history, and he hits the ground, and then we get to the part of the episode I absolutely hate it.
The dream sequence, or when he wakes up?
When he wakes up.
Okay.
So we've spent... The episodes are roughly 25 minutes.
Roughly.
We've spent the vast majority of that time doing an episode that is very serious and has repercussions for the long-term story arc.
Well, remember, this series doesn't know what it's trying to be either. Whether it's like somewhere on the borderline comedy, borderline action, borderline romance, borderline, I don't know, it's trying to be its own thing.
Okay, but here's the problem with that. So, if you're going to do that episode, you shouldn't undercut it with a joke at the end, unless the joke is really, really good and like is important to the character. Or is important to the story you're telling. This joke doesn't serve the narrative. It doesn't serve a character, really. There's no point to it other than, shit, we need to fill an extra minute.
I can see your complaint. But with that one specific scene alone, there were a couple specific jokes or callbacks to it. Most likely, I'm sure you're more concerned with the fact that Spike decides to open his mouth about a certain thing that happened near the end.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Duly noted.
He generally chooses not to openly discuss that sort of thing, so he just kind of shrugs it off with a joke.
Yeah, I didn't... No, but like I don't expect him to have a huge heart-to-heart with Faye. Yeah. I would have rather just had them show Spike on the Bebop, bandaged literally head to toe.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Wakes up, sees Faye. Faye says something, cut to black. That would have been a preferable ending, at least to me.
It's thankfully not as much as you wanted to cut from other particular things.
Well,
we're not going to discuss my opinion on anime sometimes.
okay. I wasn't going to get into that.
Where you have a 2.5-hour movie that could be cut to 45 minutes. But anyway.
Damn good thing we're not talking about Evangelion.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Okay. So, we're going to do a new segment called Paul Tries to Figure Out What the Hell's Going On in the Series.
Okay.
Alrighty.
That's my working title for it.
So, shoot your pitch.
Okay. So, this is what I think Spike's backstory is, and you're going to give me a percentage of how right I am without spoiling anything.
Okay.
Understood?
No, got it.
Do you understand, Justin?
Does the percentage have to be a number?
Yes. That's how percentages fucking work.
But then what if I say 100%? Wouldn't that spoil it and you would stop watching? I never agreed to this.
I never agreed to be murdered.
No.
Okay, so here is what I think Spike and Vicious's backstory is.
Okay.
Because I think they're tied together. Well, they're obviously tied together.
Nah.
So, I think Spike and Vicious were some kind of enforcers or hitmen for the Yakuza.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were rather vicious folks. Gee, I wonder if that's part of the reason he's named Vicious.
Mm.
They had some kind of falling out, which led to Spike. I think the reason he left is there's a girl in his dream that I don't know her name, even if they mentioned it. He leaves with her to go somewhere. Vicious gets pissed off, and she ends up getting killed by Vicious at some point.
Hmm.
Out of 100%, how right am I?
I'll probably say roughly 80.
Okay. Dave, what would you say?
Honestly, in his case, most of the stuff is just kind of vague stabs in the dark that he'd kind of be making. On the fact that most of the points you've sort of made, you're definitely over 50%, but I probably wouldn't stick it anywhere higher than 65.
Alrighty.
Well, those are very different numbers then.
Clearly. Alrighty.
I mean, it's not called the Yakuza, but,
Okay. Well,
No spoiling for him. He was very specific.
I know he was.
Alright, so, Justin, give the episode a score out of 10, even though you won't because you hate everyone.
10 out of 10.
Nice.
I am going to murder you.
Hey!
You gave me a number!
Let me give you another number.
That's 2.
David, give this episode a score out of 10.
If you wanted to convince someone to watch Cowboy Bebop, this would most likely be the best episode to do so. Everything about this episode gives kind of the best underlining tone of how the series kind of goes. Honestly, there's no question why lots of people who watch Cowboy Bebop place this episode as one of the best ones of the series. And I definitely have to agree with them, with not only the action and other particular things within it, but just all the musical cues, with just adds to everything that makes this episode of the show amazing. So, number-wise, I'm probably going to have to agree with Justin.
Okay, so you're giving it a 10 out of 10 as well.
If I need to give it a number, then yes.
This one is one I would give a number.
Alrighty, so I also really enjoyed this episode. I'm not giving it a 10.
No,
That's fine.
understandable.
I'm going to give it a 9. Primarily because of the joke at the end that completely undercuts the seriousness, in my opinion, but whatever.
Those are your issues, and we definitely respect and understand the fact of that. I most likely sort of think the couple other particular things you may have mentioned that irked you a bit might add to that one being taken off, but on the whole, it's understandable for your number.
So, this is definitely my favorite episode, at least so far.
Nah.
Hopefully, the series will maintain at least a level of quality closer to this than it did in some of the previous episodes.
I'm not saying it's going to fall down from here. It's not downhill from here. It does
There may be
have
one or
some
two
highlights.
episodes that might dip a little low, but we'd have to see how you react when you see them.
Yeah, basically.
Alrighty. Well, I'm Paul.
Still Justin.
And Dave.